Hey, it's Paula. I just want to let you know that I have only one spot left on my coaching calendar because another beautiful, brave soul reached out and grabbed the other one, which just makes my day. I love it. I'm seriously so freaking happy to be working with people who are looking for help, with people who are going through some of the same things that I've been through and that I still go through sometimes, and with people who are ready to make changes in their life. Ready is my word for 2024. Are you ready? Do you want this final open spot? It's here waiting for you. I specialize in helping you clear patterns of unworthiness and self-loathing, rewire limiting beliefs, and learn how to put yourself first. I'll help you cultivate self-love, believe in yourself, uncover your life purpose, and embrace your authentic self while reconnecting with your intuition if you've lost that connection. We'll work with your energy, your mindset, and your body to make the shifts that you're looking for. What's been pulling at you? What's been calling you? What's in your heart that needs to be freed or wants to be freed? It's time to let it all out and step into your authentic self and purpose. Let's do it together. I know you're ready for more. I know you can do this. I see you and I know you and I'm with you. And I have a space on my calendar waiting for you. Go to my website, check out my coaching packages, look at my About Me page to learn more about me, and book a free discovery call to find out if we're a good match for working together. Some of the best investments I've made in my entire life were on coaching. You can find everything at ReikiFlowMN.com. Let's connect and have an honest, vulnerable, heart-to-heart conversation about what you want and how you can make an impact in the world and get you going in the direction you want to go in. I cannot wait to meet you.
Do you have all the things they say should make you happy, but you still feel unfulfilled? Are you always doing what you should do? Or do you never feel like you're enough? And you want to feel better, more fulfilled, more aligned, and more comfortable in your own body? Then this is the show. Scared as fuck and doing it anyway, showing up authentically. My name is Paula Schuster, and I'm a self-love and authenticity coach. My life completely changed when I started loving myself again, putting myself first, and being true to me. This is the show that's going to help you get out of being stuck, out of the cycles of self-abandonment, and help you choose yourself without feeling selfish. It will give you not only inspiration, but awareness, courage, and insights to make changes and live your life for you.
Hello, lovelies. Welcome back to the Scared as Fuck and Doing It Anyway, Showing Up Authentically podcast. You're with your host, Paula Schuster. And I just want to say I love you and thanks for tuning in today. How are you doing? How are you feeling today? What's happening in your world? My world has been so physically exhausting lately. We're getting ready to put our house up for sale again. And I say again because it's the third time. Third time's a charm, right? And we've been doing all the things to get it ready. And most of it has been like physical labor, which I'm not used to. From cleaning the garage, to moving beds around, to scrubbing the marks off the walls with a magic eraser, to moving furniture for staging. We're just exhausted over here and we can't wait for it to finally be listed so we can just relax a little and catch our breath. Selling the house has been a freaking saga. We've been trying to sell it since I quit my corporate job in 2022 because we really need to reduce our expenses. Because I have adopted a life of greater ease and my business isn't bringing in what I used to make at my corporate job, which I'm fine with. But we've had the house up for sale twice now, once in the fall of 2022, again in the fall of 2023. And here we are putting it up again this weekend, the spring of 2024. I'm confident though, this time's going to be different. I'm confident it's going to sell. We hadn't done much the other two times we tried to sell it. This time we put a new roof on, which you heard my rant about the insurance company in my last episode. We freshened things up. We painted most of the rooms. We did some work to bring things up to code so there's less on our disclosure list. And, we're just more serious about staging it in the right way too this time. So we've done a lot of work on removing our energetic blocks to selling. We've been talking to the house and telling the house it's time for us to break ties and for it to find a new owner. And It's literally in our astrology to be picking up and setting down new roots somewhere in June of this year. So there you go. It's in the stars, baby. Literally, though, my wife and I each had separate astrology readings where we were both told that it's in our charts to set down new roots in June of 2024. So we consider that as good as DONE done. And so when this episode drops on Thursday, May 2nd, we will have just finished everything and had the windows and the inside of the house professionally cleaned. So it can be considered done. And then I have one day of rest, other than I see a coaching client that day. And then I'm driving up to Duluth with my former husband to move my daughter home from college for the summer. So more manual labor. Which I love on one hand that she's coming home because she'll be here and I'll get to see her a bunch and I'll get to hug her and kiss her and love her up. But she's fucking messy, this girl. So, and we'll be showing the house. So that's just an extra thing to deal with. Unless we get an offer right out of the gate, which would be totally freaking awesome. Then we don't have to worry about showings and we can just live and start packing. And in case you don't know and you're curious, we currently live in a suburb of Minneapolis, Minnesota in the US, and we're moving south to either Kentucky or Tennessee, or possibly North Carolina or Georgia. We're not sure yet. It's kind of all in flux. My wife's family's in Kentucky, so that's a reason why Kentucky's on the list. And we just want to move south for warmer, sunnier weather and for a lower cost of living. And for a slower and easier lifestyle too. I mean, Minneapolis has gotten really expensive and it's cold here. So we're going to rent wherever we go. So we aren't tied down to any one place for a long time. That's the gypsy in me. And I'm finally following that part of me and following that heart's desire because it's really been in me since I was a young kid. And so I can't wait to follow that and see where it leads us. So we're renting because, and we don't want to be responsible for like structural maintenance and upkeep and all that other stuff. We just want to care for the place that we live and keep it nice. So we're renting and we're looking for a place out in the country, like at least 20 to 30 minutes outside the city and with land, like more than a couple of acres. We've found a ton of places that would work for us, but we can't really rent one until we have a buyer for this house. So that's what we have going on over here in my world. And I'm trusting that the universe will take care of us and line things up just as we need them. And I'm already seeing signs of it. Like I went to get my teeth cleaned the other day at the dentist, and my dental hygienist had moved from Minneapolis to Maryville, Tennessee a few years ago with her family. And she was telling me all about the lifestyle and the people in Maryville, how it's a slower, easier lifestyle, which again, is right up our alley. She said you could tell the difference between the two cities right when you get off the plane at the airport. She said people in Maryville walk slower and people in Minneapolis are rushing around. She said they even have rocking chairs in the airports down there. Like, I love that. But they made the move to lower their cost of living so she could stay at home with their kids. And then she just travels back to Minnie to see her parents once every 4 to 6 weeks. And she works at the dentist's office. She told me that when she first moved there, people had to ask her to talk slower so that they could understand her because she talked too fast for them to understand. Like, whoa, that's crazy, man. And flights on Allegiant Air from Knoxville to Minneapolis and back and forth are only like $100. So I'll be able to fly the kids down or I can come back for visits for a reasonable cost. And she shared so many other things with me all along the lines of what we're looking for. And it was just synchronicity at work as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, that's what's happening in my world. I'll keep you updated on our move sitch as it happens and as it unfolds. All right, on to the guest for this week. I am just delighted to share my beautiful and super informative conversation with Robin Jonas on the podcast today. Robin and I have a lot in common in terms of holistic health and wellness, non-toxic living, and caring for our body, mind, and spirit. This woman is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all things integrative health and wellness and making small, seemingly insignificant 1% shifts that are actually the most sustainable for us. So there's lots of that in here. She talks about primary foods. And I say foods in air with like air quotes, because it's not really referring only to food, the food that we eat, but rather referring to all the inputs to our wellness: spirituality, relationships, finding joy, play, home environment, food, finances, all the things we listen to, our self-talk, who we surround ourselves with, all the things that we consume and do in addition to just food. Robin is an empty nester, and she created a group for moms who are also empty nesters to find community and to find themselves again after giving for so many years to their family and possibly losing themselves in the process. I mean, I know I can relate to that for sure. I love that she created this community, and my hope is that it thrives big time. Robin sprinkles a handful of practical things throughout this episode for us to try on. We were both excited about that. And mostly because it's always my intention to leave you with tools and practices that you can adopt to cultivate positive change in your lives. So listen in and see what you're able to take away. Just as a side note, there were a couple of times when our Zoom meeting froze, and we did our best to delete out the silence and connect it all together again. So hopefully it's not too noticeable. All right. So please join me in welcoming Robin Jonas. Hi, Robin. Welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to have this conversation with you. I always love being in your presence, and I've really loved getting to know you, and I can't wait to see kind of where our friendship goes after this.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for that compliment. I feel the same way. For listeners, Robin and I met in our podcasting program, although maybe we were connected even before that in the other coaching program we took, AEA. But I was looking forward to this conversation with you, Robin, because we're like-minded in so many things. One of which is healthy living and clean eating and those kinds of things. And I always appreciate learning new things in that space. But we're really, and that's really what your podcast is about, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Live life balanced. And we'll talk, we'll tell everybody where they can find you and your podcast at the end. But today we're here to talk about authenticity, because that's where, that's what my podcast is about. But why don't we start off by just having you, tell the listeners a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So in my former life, I like to say, before kids, I was a teacher, and then I was a stay-at-home mom, where I believe my journey really started of wellness and nutrition and supplements and products and toxic, and just really that's where like my adventure started, is what I like to say. Parenting really brought all of that to light for me, and that kind of started the journey of digging and trying to figure out why my kids might have had a certain ailment, and that brought me into more of the Eastern modalities and different kinds of integrative forms of medicine. And I'm not afraid to try things. So I really, because I like the natural route, we delved into a lot of just different things. And that brought up a lot of let's say, me having to reflect on who I was as a person and where I had come from, and just, my parents did the best they could with what they had, but I had an opportunity to change that for my kids. And so being an educator, I was like, well, of course I'm going to do that. And I'm sure every parent does that, right? Then it's just, everybody's little era is a little bit different. And so, the more I started to learn and teach my kids, the more I thought, I'm impacting them for a long time, to come. And so everything I did with great intention. And it also just made me learn that, I don't know everything, right? As a parent, that's a very big slap in the face of like, you think you do until you have children. And then you're like, you have no idea. Right. And so again, it was really a time for me to reflect on who I was and really get authentic with who I was and where I wanted to go, and that I had the power actually to transform some of those things. So I went back to school after my kids were a little bit older, because I wanted to kind of marry up the education and like my passion for nutrition and wellness. And so I'm not a dietitian and I'm not a nutritionist, but I am an integrative health coach, because the way that I look at things is you can have all the knowledge and you can know all the things, but helping somebody to actually transform, to me, is where it's at.
Yeah.
And so, I wanted to also go at it from a holistic perspective, because as a human, we are all things. We are not just the food on our plate. We are not just the movement that we do, but we are also, what we call primary foods. Things that affect us is, your spirituality, your relationships, where you find joy, your home living, your home environment, your home cooking, like things, your finances, things people don't really consider to be in the wellness realm, but they truly are, because as a human, we're all connected. We're one whole being, right? And we're connected. All of our systems are connected. And I think, I know this is getting a little off, but like the Western medicine thought philosophy is, when something is wrong, you deal with that one specific thing.
Right.
And so the integrative, more so, it's like, why is that one specific thing off? So finding the root cause, which never is that thing. It's usually something over here. And then once you fix that something over here, magically this other thing kind of heals itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I became an integrative health coach, because I wanted to help people, empower people actually to start to understand themselves, to listen to their bodies, to do the research themselves. Like, people are so scared to try to figure things out on their own because of the way our society has kind of created, I'm the doctor, I know all. And it's like, actually, no, I know myself the best. And so I think being your own advocate and all those things, come into play. So that's a little bit about me. And there's a whole lot more, but I think for this podcast in particular, being authentic to who I am really was where my personal transformation started to take shape.
Yeah. And there's so much in what you said here that I want to get to. But isn't that the truth? Like, when you start being true to you and what feels right for you, that's where the transformation starts to happen. Let's see. So I love that you talked about, that you're an integrative health coach, and helping people transform is where it's at, because and that we know what's best for ourselves, that it isn't really in what the doctor says, right? We know how to heal ourselves. Our bodies are natural healers. We know what feels right for us. I don't know how many people I've heard say, just in the recent past, the last couple of months, oh, well, the doctor said this, so I'm just doing it, even though I don't feel like it's right, or I don't think I should have to take this, or I tried to tell them and they didn't listen. And it just floors me. It makes me so sad that people aren't really being their own self advocates.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
so
I think that I think that happens so much, so frequently, because in society, that's what we're taught, right? And
right.
so again, from where I sit, there's a place for Western medicine. There's a place for
Yes.
medication if needed. There's a place for those things. But like your example that you just gave, I love to help people articulate and write out questions that they can go to their primary care or whatever and ask the questions and make sure they get those answers. Because if you're not getting those answers, then that person probably isn't the right fit for you.
Right.
And so there's a ton of other people out there. It's just a matter of trying on different things to see what actually feels right. You should partner up with your medical professional. You shouldn't just be listening to what they say, because again, you know your body the best. And so you've got to be true to your body and true to what you're thinking, because they don't know what you're thinking and they have no idea what your life is actually like. They just know you in that 15-minute glimpse that they get of you.
Right, right. And if you tune in, your body is giving you the answers, right? You just have to
Yes.
tune in and listen to what you're feeling. Or even if it's like an initial thought, like usually when a doctor or even anyone really says something to you, you can tell right away whether or not it sits right with you, and the
100%,
first
yeah.
initial thing that your intuition tells you. But you can also feel it in your body if you're really
in tune.
tuning
It's
in.
called a gut feeling. People say, oh, I have a gut feeling that. And it's like, yep, you actually do get a gut feeling. It could be butterflies. It could be you stabbing pains. It could be a lot of different things, right? And your gut is linked with your brain. There's a gut brain connection. And so if you're feeling it in your gut, your brain is also off. So, or your brain is off, which makes your gut off. And so you've got to really start to tune into yourself and recognize what that actually feels like. And I think that's the first step, is just the awareness in any transformation. You've got to be aware of where you are starting and also where you want to go, but where you're starting and what is one tiny step. And, I always talk about the 1% shift method, because you can't go from A to Z without going through the whole alphabet. And so you've got to know that you've got to have to take a ton of little tiny incremental steps. And still, when you get to Z, you're going to keep going, because the journey of life and health and wellness doesn't just end. There is no finish line per se until you're no longer on earth.
I love how, and that's so true, right? And there's so many analogies for that 1% shift. I mean, if you're driving a car and you turn the wheel 1 inch, you will end up in a totally different place miles down the road. If you end up turning the wheel like all the way one way, you actually end up kind of going in a circle or spinning out, right? And it doesn't work. So I love the 1% shifts that you're sort of based, I've heard you say that many times. I love that.
Yeah. And I think for most people, it's such a reframe that they have to do, because again, in society, we have been conditioned that, I'm just going to give an example of I want to lose weight, because that's a big one for people. There's so much to that little tiny statement that I could get into. But the one part I want to say is, like, you think you want to do this one thing. And so you look for the tool you think is going to help you get there the quickest, get you there with the least amount of pain, get you there, And so let's say they jump on like a quick, I don't know, fad diet. So yeah, maybe in 30 days you drop, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever it is. You're feeling a little bit better. You think you're on the right track, but then what happens after that 30 days, right? You haven't learned really any new habits, any new routines. You haven't learned really why you were doing what you were doing and what made you feel your best, except that you saw a result, which I think results are great, but you got to know how you're getting the result.
Yeah.
And then after that 30 days, you might go back to some of your old habits, which really defeats the purpose of the 30 days. And so I'm not an advocate. I'm not saying those are bad. I think if you need a jump start, I think those are great. But while you're jump starting, you've got to understand that you have to put little things in place to make those shifts, to make new habits, to create consistency, and then it becomes your daily. And I always use the brushing your teeth as an example. When you're a kid, your mom has to remind you every day, we're going to brush your teeth before you go to bed. We're going to brush your teeth before you go to bed. And then over time, you hope when your children get of an age, you can just say, hey, go to the bathroom and brush your teeth. They now know it's toothpaste, it's a toothbrush, it might be floss, it might be whatever, and so they've got now these, over time, those small little incremental things now have become part of their just life. And that's my hope for everybody in the wellness, things that they choose, is that it becomes second nature. So now nobody talks about brushing their teeth twice a day. You just do it. Yeah. And so that's kind of, when we talk about morning routines and how impactful those are, it's uncomfortable at first because it's unknown, it's weird, it's something maybe you haven't done. But over time, you should be craving that. You should just get up and want to do it and just do it. It shouldn't even be a thought, because you don't run out of the house without brushing your teeth unless, I don't know, maybe you do, but
right.
Well, you don't.
And that applies to all areas of life, right? All things in your life. So, if you're trying to practice more self-love or being more of your authentic self, it starts with the small practices, the small daily practices that end up carrying you miles. It's those 1% shifts that end up carrying you so far, because if you start small, number one, it's easier to do, right?
Yes.
And it's easier to get into the habit and the practice of those things. And then, weeks and months down the road, you're looking back going, wow, look at what I've changed. Look at how I've transformed. And so that applies to well, I don't know, when I teach my cultivating self-love class, I teach, having a morning practice around appreciation.
Yeah.
Or you even open your eyes. I have a practice around self-love mirror work and meditation and starting small, 5 or 10 minutes, or, so all of those, things start with the small shifts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the first two things you said, which was the mirror practice and the cultivating something right in the morning and
Appreciate.
appreciation. And so with that, I mean, they sound so little, right? They sound so insignificant to somebody who's struggling, right? They're like, why am I going to waste my time on that? I'd rather just, stop eating a whole food group for 30 days and see how that goes, and it's like, honestly, that those two small little things will transform your whole life before anything else.
That's
When
right.
you, before you wake up in the morning and really come to consciousness, most people are having negative thoughts. Most people are having the chaos already start in their mind about their day and all the things that are going to happen. And most people are looking for the negative, right? So it's like, that's the very first, if you can wake up and say a couple of things you're grateful for, or have a mantra that you're just going to say in the morning, like today's going to be an awesome day because I'm allowing, for goodness, whatever it is you make up. But if you just have that, the first 20 minutes, that sets up unconsciously, that sets up your day for the entire day and how it's going to go. And then once you do that, the other thing that we're just, again, haven't been taught to do is looking at yourself in the mirror and saying something kind to yourself. People,
Like, I love
I,
you.
right. Like
I love you just the
they
way you are.
literally would rather like starve themselves. It's like they would rather do something so hard because it's so uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable because we haven't been taught how to do that and how effective that is on your transformation. And I think when you're getting authentic and trying to live in authenticity of who you are, you have to get to know yourself, right? You've got to know who you are and be strong in whatever that is. And whether it's faith, whether it's spirituality, wherever you are, you've got to learn how to connect to that. And I think that's the best thing a morning practice is good for. It's just to get in tune. And I was one of the people that were like, I cannot meditate. Like, I have tried, it is just not for me. But honestly, at that time in my life, I wasn't ready for it. And
Yeah.
that's something I recognize with other people. Maybe you're just not ready right now, or you haven't found the style of meditation. But when people say that, I just say, okay, for 60 seconds, which anybody can do 60 seconds, just close your eyes and just see what you hear, see what you feel, like go through your senses. That's very, very tip of the iceberg of what meditation is. It's just thinking about nothing or something else. And again, I think people get confused, like, I can't just sit silent. And it's like, well, no one's expecting you to sit silent. You're actually supposed to hear things and you're supposed to listen to those things and
Right.
get the downloads and then do something with them.
Right.
So again, there's tons of types of meditation. For me, visual is what I love, but I've been dabbling in other ones because I'm like, okay, well, now I know I like that. So what's next? But I
Right.
was not like that 2 years ago. I was like, I don't know how to do this. This is weird and it's uncomfortable because I didn't, because again, I think so many people have this definition of meditation that is not truth, really.
Right.
So
Right.
until you understand it, it's hard.
I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. Just kind of even 60 seconds going through your senses. Yeah. And knowing that, because that's a great place to start for people who don't think meditation is for them or think that they can't do it. And then also just the awareness that it isn't about getting quiet necessarily. It's about being the witness to your thoughts and going, oh, look at, oh, this is interesting. I'm having this thought. What? And I wonder why, or you know what I mean? Um,
Exactly.
our mind isn't going to stop. Our minds are meant to think and wander because that's what minds do.
Yep.
Just like a heart beats blood and pumps blood throughout our body, that's what our mind is there for. So thank you for
I
bringing that
think
up.
the coolest thing though, when you actually, even if you're doing it just for 60 seconds, when you have an awareness and intention, like you're present in the moment, to see, like, even in a week's time, maybe on Monday you're having a bunch of negative thoughts, right? Or you're just having like a bunch of chaos things that are just, you seek out whatever, and our brains do that. It likes to look
Mhm.
for a lot of negative evidence, but it's like, if you do that and then you reframe, so like, let's say your thought was, oh, I have a meeting today and it's going to be so stressful. It's going to be a bad day. It's like, so that's how you were on Monday. But Monday, when you said that to yourself, if you reframe it to, maybe the meeting won't be as grueling as I think it's going to be. But even if it is, I'm going to choose to make it a better day. And then as you're going through your week and you keep reframing the negative things that pop up first thing, that's how you transform over to a more positive way of thinking. You've got to reframe the negative to train your brain that no, we're going to stop that and we're going to do a different loop.
Right, because we've practiced the negativity for
Yeah.
so long, we have to start retraining and practicing the positivity. And then all it is, like you're saying, is a retrain. I love how you explained that. Because we can like overcome this stuff. We just have to retrain ourselves and then practice like we practiced the other stuff
Yeah.
for years or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and just before we move off of that, like sort of 1% shift or small, daily tools and practices that really carry you miles, and really can transform your life. I just want to mention a couple. We had talked about some for self-love, and I want to hit on authenticity too. And so,
Sure.
what are a couple of small things that people can do to be more authentic? Just a couple of small daily things they can do. So one thing that comes to mind for me is to pick, like, notice when you're saying, well, I should do this, and go, okay, I'm going to stop myself and I'm not going to do what I should do. How do I feel about this really? And what do I really want to do? What feels right for me? And then do that instead. And so that's one thing that comes to mind for me, because that's one way that you can be more authentic, or we can be more authentic with ourselves, right? Is to stop doing what we should do and what society thinks we should do, what we think the expectations are, whatever, what our parents want us to, whatever it is, what our spouse, whoever, it's really what feels right for us. And so what's one thing, Robin, you would say that would be a small practice that people could start with to be more authentic to them?
I think saying what you mean rather than saying what you think you should say,
Yeah.
and I know it's the should thing, but one of the examples that pop into my head every time when I'm asked that question is, when my family and I chose to do clean eating, right? We just made a conscious decision that was going to be a better fit for us. The pushback, of from people is like, oh, she's not going to go there because she's not going to eat that, or oh, she won't eat that. Like, don't even like, and when you're not used to that, at first you're like trying to make excuses, like, well, I don't, whatever the excuse might be. And I just kind of got to a point where I was like, wait a second, I could eat that if I wanted to, but I don't want to because I don't feel good when I eat it. So
Yeah.
therefore, I'm making that choice. However, if I feel like just because I eat 90% clean, if I'm somewhere and I want to have a piece of chocolate cake, I'm going to have a couple of bites. I'm going to enjoy it and I'm going to move on. I don't feel guilt. I don't feel shame. So I think it's taking ownership of where you are in your journey and being able to articulate and voice that. And that is something I've tried really hard to transform with my children also, because like you said, the society stuff, like what you should do, it's like, no, do you really want to do that? Does it feel good to you to want to do that? Or are you doing it because you think you should?
Right.
And so I just think verbalizing where you're at, I think is what I would suggest. And also pausing. My word for this year is pause, and I cannot tell you what a great word that's been for me. And I
Oh, I
think if
like that.
everybody took a minute to pause when they feel like they're about to like not feel good about what they're doing or saying, and just give themselves a second to like get it together, reframe what they think should, whatever, and then be able to come at it from a more authentic lens of
Yeah.
what feels good to you. And I think we've ignored ourselves for a really long time.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I know I did
So
anyway. I'm saying that
yeah,
because it
I,
resonates with me.
yeah. And I'm talking about most moms, like I'm just talking about women in general. But I think when you are a mom, because that's my experience, you really like put everything before yourself. And even when you think you're giving yourself some of the things, you're just doing it for survival. You're not really doing it with the intention of like feeding yourself to be a better person. You're just like coping basically.
And
So
that's another thing people can do is to start to put ourselves first, especially moms and women like you're talking about. Like we have been conditioned to believe that it's selfish to put ourselves first, right? And so we put everybody before us. And the minute that I started turning that around and putting myself at the top of my to-do list, and I had to make changes in my life to do that, right? So like one of the things was to take time for myself to meditate every morning. And so yes, I had to get myself to bed earlier so I could get up a little bit earlier, right? So that I could spend that time in the morning meditating, before the kids were up and all that kind of stuff.
sure.
Um, but that's one thing that we can do is to start to put ourselves first in small ways.
Hmm.
And so I love that you brought that up too. So, a couple of minutes
Sorry.
ago, oh no, no, not at all. You had talked about, um, how everything's connected, and how, it's really about what I kind of took from it was it's really about how it's everything we consume. It's everything we do. It's not just, what we're eating or what we're drinking, what we're putting in our mouths, right? It's how we're feeling. It's the thoughts that we have that we're telling ourselves. It's the relationships, um, all of that. And I wanted to touch on that for kind of bring that back and touch on it for a minute because it is so important. In the Western world, we are, like you mentioned, it's when you go to the doctor or whatever, it's sort of focused on one thing. And so that is part of our culture and society and it really is all the things, like everything is so important. It's not just it's everything that we're consuming. And I also talk about that in in this workshop that I teach on cultivating self-love, because I believe that that really helps get us back to our authentic selves.
Sure.
And so can you help me just kind of go through some of those things
Sure.
a bit
I think
more?
in a the easiest way I think that I can explain this for people to be able to walk away with something is, we always talk about mind, body, and spirit, right? That
Yeah.
everybody's heard those terms, right? And nobody really understands what that actually what that actually is. But you mentioned like input, right? And then the output. And so for each of those, if you really just break it down into simple terms, like your mind, the things that you see, the things that you listen to, the people you surround yourself with, what you are or are not reading, how you speak to yourself, all of those inputs greatly affect the output that you have. The thoughts that you have then turn into reality. And so if you are ingesting a bunch of negative things, things that make you feel bad about yourself, things that make you feel like you're less than, things that really aren't serving your higher being, all of those things, then when you go to our talk and you go to be throughout your day, you're not being the best version. You're not really being an authentic person because you've let all this garbage sort of like run your mind. So
Yes.
I think breathing, getting present, doing the pause, and then having like the one question each time you go to do something. How is this serving me? So if you're going to go around a group of people and these people are people who really don't have your best interest, aren't going to really cause a higher vibration for you or a higher vibe, do you really want to spend time with these people? Like how are they filling your cup rather than depleting your cup? And I think again, so many of us just go in those groups because they're comfortable, they feel fine, whatever, but you don't really recognize the negativity that's coming out of that. So for mind, think about what you're inputting to then get a different output.
Yeah, and we think that maybe we're being accepted by these groups, but really are we? Because have we given up, have we abandoned ourselves in order to be our true selves in order to be accepted by these
Yeah,
friends, whoever we're around? Or are we, if we're not really being our authentic selves, do they really like our authentic selves? Because if we're not, how do we know? How do they know? You know what I mean? So,
right. Yeah,
and you know, getting back to what you were saying on the consumption end, if we're listening to things, watching things that are making us feel bad about ourselves or society, right? Because if we're watching like, I don't know, movies or shows that, so like TV shows, like a lot of the, regular TV shows that are on are like these dramas where they show all this codependency or
Right.
movies, right? And so like that's like part of how we're conditioned is just even through watching those shows. Like I've just really been noticing that recently. And or if we're watching a movie where there's like all of this hatred
Yeah.
and doom and gloom, or society's bad, then it's not only necessarily making us feel bad about us, but then the world that we live in. And so that affects us and the collective energy because we are all connected. And
Yeah,
uh,
for sure. Very
so
much so. Yeah. And I also think, you know, I don't know how old you are exactly, but like back in my day, it was like Family Ties. And I don't
yeah.
know why that just popped up, but that was like, I can't remember the lady that had the five girls at boarding school, whatever that was, Tootie, whatever that
Oh,
show was.
yeah, I know what you're talking.
No,
It's around the tip of my tongue.
there was like problems, right? There was problems in the show. Let's say like even in Family Ties, I'll just use that. Like they would have a family issue, but they would show like a good resolution. They would show like how you work through a problem. Nowadays, it's just garbage. Like most of the shows on TV, the reality shows, it just shows, I'm not going to say all, but there's a majority of, and I don't really watch a ton of TV or reality shows, but I used to be a big sucker for Big Brother, and
Me
I will
too.
watch it from here to here. But it's like when I sit and I look at these people, I'm just like, why am I actually watching this? Like,
Right.
what is it? I'm like, I could really be spending my time. It is, sometimes good to just chill out and watch it, but it's just like, I would be like humiliated if my children were on TV doing stuff like that. That's just, and it's like just funny how TV has shifted
Yeah.
and also how badly our society has shifted. It's like it's a product of what is being thrown at you constantly.
Yeah.
So the second one, my body, and so I think to simplify that, like what do you put in your body? Food, chemicals, what do you put on your body? Toxic products, some of us, because we're unaware and we don't know. How we move our bodies, that's part of how we treat. Our body has been given to us, right? And I think that people forget it's a gift, and we should really treat it like that. It's like if you treated your body and your mind the way that you would talk to your friend, or or treat your friend, or
Up.
encourage your friend to do something, if you did that for yourself, things might look a little different. But I think what you ingest, whole food, not whole food, processed, not processed, maybe you should just take a look at that, because how does it make your body feel? Are you sick? And even if you're not sick today, a lot of times things fester over the years and eventually your body cannot handle it and it breaks down. And there was one thing that somebody said not too long ago that obviously resonated and has stuck with me, because I was on another podcast and her and I were just chatting, and we were just saying, like what you do today, it might or might not affect your health today, but it does later in life. And then the problem with that is it is your body right now, but when you're old and you need care, that ricochets on the entire family. And we're going through that with my mom right now. She's at a point where she needs full-time caregiving. And, I'm not saying, maybe if she changed things, she wouldn't have ended up this way, but I'm just saying it's not, your choices don't just impact you. They also impact your family and your children and your aunts and your sisters and your siblings and all the other
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yep.
So again, it's taking, what are you inputting into your body? Whatever you do, eventually that's what's going to kind of do the give you output. So I think looking at that differently than the body part. And then spirit, for many people that will look different. I'll just talk from my personal experience, but having a relationship with God is meaningful for me, and it's showed me a different way of not feeling alone, having somebody else, always above me and for me, and with me when I'm feeling less lack of or whatever. And I think it's also really cool because God kind of has given us a spirit within our body, right? And again, everybody has their own perception of whether it's spirit, universe, whatever. It's all the same thing. It's a higher being, right? It's somebody that when we zoom out and we look in, we've been given this precious hollow thing with a spirit in it. It's like, what do you do with that? So I think again, what are you putting into that? Are you reading word? Are you meditating on, whatever it is you choose? And again, everybody's practice will look different to what feels good to them, but doing something that you're bringing something else besides yourself into, your daily being.
Well, you were talking about, God and a higher power and that you're not alone and you have help. And I also just wanted to bring in too, like, we also have guides on the other side that are helping us too, not just our source or the universe or, whatever we call or refer to that higher power or being or God as that we have guides too that are helping us. Like it's not just all on our shoulders, and we can ask for
Mhm.
their help anytime.
Yep.
Whether they're spirit guides, angel guides, they might even be loved ones who have, crossed over to the other side, or at least that's what I believe.
Sure.
And when I really, sort of renewed my relationship um, with God, source, the universe, and started really, realizing and counting on my guides, like everything really did change for the better for me too. And now I ask for their help all the time, and I get answers and stuff. And
I wanted to touch just really quick because that is such a good point. But one of the things I also think people could understand a little bit better is like prayer versus meditation. And like the way I try to explain that is like prayer, right, is asking. So we're asking for guidance, we're asking for um whatever. I mean, whatever it is that you happen to be asking for. In a way, that's going to serve that whatever you believe in. But meditation is really the practice of listening, right? It's the practice of, praying for maybe what it is, the guidance that you need, but then it's like in order to hear what that guidance might be, how it's going to be given to you, or what, or you've got to get the download somehow, right? So it's like getting quiet and really understanding that connection, I think also puts into perspective quiet time is what I call it. So if you're not a meditator, you just call it quiet time. It's just really getting quiet and still to be able to kind of put out what you need and then, over time see what's sort of coming back. And then I think when you start to recognize how it's coming back to you, it you start to really get a better understanding of what's possible.
yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I love that. I do a combination of both every morning, really. Then I
Mm-hmm.
kind of meditate and pray, and it kind of just ebbs and flows
Exactly.
throughout the time that I'm sitting in on my mat or whatever. The other thing, and you froze for a second, so I'll have to go back and listen, but I'm not sure when you were talking about spirit, did you bring in sort of the part about, sort of feeding your soul with joy, like what brings you joy? Do those things, play. I've been trying to get back into playing, right? And reminding myself, what did I like to do as a kid? How did I like to play? Like maybe I'll bring some of those things back in my life. What really feeds my soul, what fills my heart?
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that bring me joy?
Yeah, and that's actually
It's
what
part
one
of
of the
that
things
mind,
we
body,
call,
spirit.
yeah, we call that a part of your primary foods. It's like, do you know where your joy is? Like, do you know how to find your joy? Do you know what you are joyful about? Like, do you understand that, finding joy or having joy in your life is actually part of your wellness journey, and
Yeah,
we have, just because you're 30, 40, 50 doesn't mean that you shouldn't have the same joy that you had when you were little. But unfortunately, what happens is you go from that little person who that's all that matters, and it's just on a daily, you're just finding joy just because you're so innocent and you don't have societal stuff that's thrown at you yet. But then as you're going up, the pressure and all the things in school and things that, ultimately in the end do not matter, they suck the joy out of a lot of your life. And
right,
so it's like retraining yourself that no, I'm supposed to have joy every day. I'm supposed to be able to find old things or new things. I mean, pickleball for me is totally new, but I'm not a competitive person, but I find great joy in it because it's social. I love my friends. It's hysterical. You don't have to be the greatest. And I think also giving yourself permission to just try different things and see, like, I mean, there are certain things I don't like and they don't bring me joy. So I'm not going to continue to do them because I'm not going to get out of it what I should. So I think again, it's a lot of self conversations and not just going through the steps and the motions because you think that's what you should be doing.
right, exactly.
So,
And realizing it might take a little bit of time, right? Like when you start
oh,
asking
geez.
yourself those questions and trying to figure out, who am I now? What do I really believe? What do I really like? Like when I sat down and started to ask myself those questions, it took me some time, like especially with the play thing.
Hmm.
It took me a good week to like
Sure.
figure out like, okay, how do I want to play? What will really make me feel happy? And then I was like, okay, well, what did I like when I was younger? And then it took me a while to remember some of those things. And
Yeah.
so we're I say that because we're in a society where everything is sort of instantaneous, or we expect it to be, just because of, well, the digital world has brought us there, and we have all these things, you order a thing on Amazon, it's on your doorstep kind of a thing, so
I kind of
um
like that.
I do too, but give yourself some grace with, that you might not know that, give yourself some space to figure it out.
Yes, I think that's such great advice because and the space is so needed. And I also think it helps you to like take a step back and realize that it's taken you however many years old you are to get where you are. And the expectation that we put on ourselves for things to happen instantaneously really is not serving well to anybody.
Yeah.
But I also think when you look at it more as a process, you get more out of it than just one step and you're done. And so, it is allowing for grace. It is allowing for trial and error. It's allowing, I look at it, I always refer like an onion. It's like you might get that first layer off and you're feeling good, and then whoop, something else is going to pop up, right? That you forgot that you didn't know, or you forgot that you forgot, or didn't feel good, whatever. And so you're just constantly sort of like delayering that onion to really get down to who you truly are. What is your purpose? What is your passion? And again, I think being a mom, our purpose and passion usually goes from whatever to our children, and
Yeah.
then we are doing our children's lives. And not that I would trade that for the world. I would definitely wouldn't, because I wanted to be a mom, and it was my greatest joy and all of that, and it still is. But when they grow up and they leave the nest, it's like, oh, wait a minute, now I gotta like
Mm.
figure out like what's happening. And so I do think, you know, figuring out where you can serve people and what your purpose is really helps to transition into that space of in that chapter of your life a little bit better. And I feel, which is why I created the Empty Nest Mamas group, because, or not group, but experience, because I really feel like, we do have little pockets like babies, you've got the mommy and me groups, and then, schooling, you've got all the stuff that your kids do in school, whether it's PTA, PTO, sports, this, that, and you have kind of those built-in automatic friends, family kind of thing as you're going through all that. But then when your children leave, you don't have that village anymore. I decided to create that experience. And I hope that it serves people in a way that they feel seen and heard and can refine new passions and new purpose and bounce ideas and support each other. Because I think honestly, it could be the greatest chapter. And our kids would not want to see us suffering and being sad and being without purpose, because they're off figuring themselves out, right? And seeing that is amazing. And they need to look at you as an example. So,
Right. A
yeah,
new
that's
way to
one of,
figure ourselves out. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, it's been a wild ride, I guess, but fun.
Yeah. I love that you created that. I created a Sacred Sisterhood Circle group recently, and
Okay.
it's really feeling my soul a lot. I just,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's just amazing, like it's just a place where we don't have to like be impressive, we can just show up and
Right.
be ourselves, and really like rely on each other. And, because what I said is um, I wanted to create this space where it kind of goes back to the way women used to be, right? Like we used to raise our kids together. Literally. I mean, it takes a village to raise a
Sure.
kid is a saying that came from an actual time that people did that, right? Like
Right.
women would get together and help each other in all the ways. And I wanted to kind of bring that back.
Hmm.
Like
I
I
love
want to
that.
be able to
It's
help
so
my
needed.
friends with their business and not feel like they need to do something for me in return. I want
Yeah.
to just do it because I love them and I want to help them, and they might need that help right then.
Yeah.
And maybe they can help me when I need it. And it might not be at the same time or whatever.
Hmm.
But so that was one of my purposes, just because I feel like we've gotten into this place where in society where everything is just a transaction, and especially in friendships, like if you do something for your friend, like they feel like they're compelled, or they feel like they have to do something in return, or it has to be even, or and I want to cultivate something that moves away from that.
Yeah, I
Um,
love that. That's great. And it's so needed. I think that, again, like the children of today have so much pressure on them, you know, societally and within a family construct because, people want the best for their children, but they don't realize that, they're pushing them in ways that really could be negative. Not always, but it could. And I just think you need to be careful with how things and let your kids lead. It's like let them do what feels good to them. Ask them, do you like this? Does this make you happy? Is this where you're finding joy? It's like help them now while they're under your wings to learn how to navigate that. So that way when they do go out on their own, they do have some tools, because they're definitely gonna need them for sure. Um,
and I love that you brought that up because it brings it back to authenticity, right? Letting
yeah,
our kids lead what feels right for them. What do they like? What do they want?
yeah.
Rather than what the parents want, or
And it
what.
can be, and I want to say it can be so scary, right? It's so scary for a parent to give that over to their child because it's like the last thing you want to do is have them choose something that might ricochet into something negative. And I think that's where like the hovering type of like parent came in, where like, well, we don't want our kids to have to struggle or have to go through. And it's like, but that's part of life.
Yeah.
And I'll give you just a quick example. I have my older daughter, always loved animals, whatever. She's like, I'm going to be a vet. I'm going to be a vet her whole, life. She's also super artsy, in drawing and video and photography and playing guitar. And she's got like a multifaceted, artsy kind of brain. But then she just really loves animals too. So, she was like, well, I'm going to go to vet school and then maybe I'll do like that other stuff on the side. And I was like, okay, I mean, if that's what feels right to you. So she got in, she's going to school for vet. And I just kept seeing more and more of like her artsy creative side coming out, like in just different things she was doing. And so I just sat down with her last summer and I just said, listen, I'll support whatever you want, but I also want to just kind of bring up to you so that you can kind of make sure you know what you're doing without just doing something because you feel like you should.
Yeah.
And so I said, I see this and I see this. And although you like animals, I see you really like delving into the artsy side again. And I don't want you to discount that this isn't something that you could be, doing more of, because it could also be a career because you have no idea what your career is going to be. And you can also mesh the two together, right? You don't have to go to vet school to kind of work with animals. So I said, again, we're going to support whatever you want, but I just wanted to give you permission to think about it. And I want you to actually take some time does this feel right to you? Because, when I've said go shadow, you haven't really jumped on that. But then when this other thing came up with videography, you were like, what's that guy's phone number? I want to call him. I want to make sure I can go see it. It was like a very different thing I saw, like just light up in your brain. And so she took a couple of days and then she said, I thank you for like saying all of that and like making me think about it. And I'm not going to do vet. I'm not going to go the vet track. I'm going to still stay in animal sciences and I'm going to get my animal genetics and all of that stuff because I really do love cows and that will be something. But then I'm also going to try to like focus over here too. And I think just giving her that permission to like, we're going to support you with whatever. And I said, why were you going? She said, I went that way because it was safe, because it kept me in school
Wow.
another 7 years and I wouldn't have to truly make choices, which again, it's hard for kids to make choices because even as adults, it's hard to make choices, right? So
Right.
and I said, that's great. I'm glad you could articulate that. I'm glad you recognize that. But whatever these kids are going through that are getting out of vet school, they're going to be going through the same worry and chaos of transition that you're going to go through a couple of years earlier. That's all. Because just because you have a vet degree doesn't mean that you're going to, not be able to do something with animals. And she's more focused on farm animals anyways. So I just wanted to give that life experience kind of real like thing because it is real and it can be real. And I think the more authentic we are personally as adults, is what the example our children will see. And hopefully they'll come up sooner than we came up, or
Yeah.
at least for me and our family.
I'm so glad you brought that example up because I'm going through some of that with my daughter right now. And she's very artsy, and her first thing that she wanted to go to school for was fashion design. And then that ended up not working out. And um, then she changed her major to entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And now the other day, she just told me that she's changing it to accounting. And I asked her why, and she said because I know I can get a comfortable job where I can have a comfortable salary um and make money. Like I've been stressed for money ever since you quit your corporate job, Mom. And and I feel like this I can make a good living and then I can start my business on the side, when as I have this sort of comfortable corporate job that's given me a secure paycheck. And honestly, like it was killing me. It killed me. It killed me that she was telling me this because she's going into accounting because she's good with numbers and because
Mm-hmm.
it's safe. And so she can have like this secure paycheck kind of a thing. And that's not really where her heart is. And
And I
so,
think as a parent, the only thing you can do is bring that to light. I mean, again, she's going to make her own choices based off of her experience and her stuff, but you can kind of see why she would do that in a certain way. But then what she doesn't realize is that those things, if they're not really soul feeding, they're going to be soul sucking.
yeah,
And so if that money, matters to you in a way that you don't mind having your soul sucked out, I'm not that you won't enjoy it, but if it's not really what you're passionate about, it'll be a short-lived, burst. And then it'll be, oof, maybe I should do something different, or maybe not. It's like you just don't know. And so it's like letting her choose is the only thing that you can do. And just kind of, giving your words of, and, yes, you saw what I did in my corporate life, and you saw now that, I'm changing because it was soul sucking, and so not that it will definitely be for her, but if she's not truly passionate about it, eventually, it will lead to burnout, or it will lead to, uh, who knows, it could just lead to a whole different direction. That's the problem. We don't have any control. We
right.
can just allow them to make a choice and just know. And all I would say is you can always pivot.
Right. And I am sitting back going, she's still in her freshman year,
Mm-hmm.
so she's got a ways and I changed my major like, I don't know, 7 times when I was in college or something like that. So I'm just gonna, sit back and continue to be the example that I am and show her, how much happier I am, not being in corporate America, not having that safe paycheck or whatever. And
But you can
ask her,
have both. You can have both. That's the other thing. You can
well,
have that
that's
secure
true.
paycheck, and you can have what I kind of reframed about college is the amount of people that I know that went to college and got a degree in something specific. Very, very small percent is still in that something specific. They've
Yeah.
gone and they've grown and they've changed. And so I really try to tell both of my girls, it's like college is a time for growing up. It is a time for problem solving. It is a time for growth. It's a time for you to dabble in different things, to see what you like and don't like. It truly is, okay to change your mind, but don't go into something just merely because you think it's safe.
Yeah.
Challenge yourself. Always challenge yourself to, and the unknown might be scary in that challenge, because having that accounting job, right? It's safe. It is, what you're going into, what you're going to get out of it. You think you do, at least, but over here, if you're going the fashion design route, it's a gamble, and there's a lot of networking, and there's a lot of like uncertainty and all of that. But some people thrive off of that. And my second daughter is much like your daughter. Like I could see she's going to go through a couple of things, but she's going to land where she's supposed to, which everybody does, which is your God-given purpose. And so I just remind her, like, you have certain talents that have been given to you, but counting can come into, if you have a small business, your accounting mind is going to help you run that business, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to have necessarily a degree in that. But you can also get a degree and work at a firm, and you can move up if lots of people thrive off of that. So you can't really tell her, like, this is the best for you, but just also don't, I think the encouragement of just don't discount your passions as something that can't be reality for a job. And that's what I was telling my daughter. It's like this, and you guys are living in this time when you can create your own job. Like, this is the world you live in. This was not really a thing for us back in the day. but you could have a passion for farm animals, right? And she's like so into cows and she's learning how to inseminate them and do all this crazy like medical stuff side of things. But
Hmm.
you also love photography. You could actually be a farm photographer and be put in magazines. Like that's how creative you have to be with your thoughts. Like you can mesh things together. It's like being a teacher and having like a wellness, like a passion for wellness. Did I ever think back in my day that I was going to be doing what I'm doing right now?
Right,
No.
right.
And if somebody would tell me that I had a podcast, I would laugh. Like I was like an introvert, wouldn't stand up and do any presentations, would sweat and have panic attacks like my daughter. It's like I keep telling her, you'll get through it. I mean, here I am at 50. It took me a long time, but this is try these things, but your body just ultimately, as you become more secure and authentic in yourself, those things just kind of drift away. So
Yeah.
again, kids are hard. Parenting is hard. It's hard. That's why I like the empty nest mama group for me is like just a way for parents to come together because we're all having similar struggles, right? We're all wanting to support our kids, but letting them go and do but then also like celebrate them for all the things they're doing because I think we were not celebrated enough growing up. It was just sort of an expectation. And I think that's where a lot of people could use a little more support and
I
just
just
being
wrote that
celebrated.
down. So thank you for saying celebrate her.
Yeah, celebrate. I
Yeah,
mean,
just as a reminder.
and just really quick, my older daughter, she's always been behind the scenes, right? All growing up, like when they did skits and whatever, she was always the camera person. She never was in the skit. She wrote the skits, she did all the things, but she was like never going to put herself. And so guitar, she learned herself, and I never thought she'd ever stand a day in her life and play in front of anybody. And at worship night at college, they have a college night, and she auditioned and she's playing now. And I went Tuesday to see her, and I just literally wanted to cry. I was like, like I cannot believe how much you've grown by just putting yourself first and putting yourself out there and feeling like safe enough to do that because you're freaking awesome.
Yeah,
And it was just like it was really cool. So
so
not
cool.
pushing them. I know. It was like,
And
it was really good.
I bet she feels so expansive after doing it too,
She
like
did.
she probably feels so empowered. And like that's how I feel doing this
Yeah,
podcast because I
it's
used to
so
be like
true.
you, so afraid to get up and talk in front of people and stuff and to be seen and to just be myself, really. I
Yeah.
thought I had to be somebody for other people. I had to meet all these expectations, and now I'm
Hmm.
doing this and it feels so expansive. Like I feel brand new. It's
Yeah.
so empowering. And so what a
Yeah.
great note to
It
end on,
was.
actually. Thank you for
Yeah.
bringing
So
that.
don't give up. Try things. Get yourself out there. Put yourself out there. It's something that seems so silly. Do it anyways, and get that feeling of what expansiveness feels like and authenticity. You want to try small things on so that you know what it feels like. So then you can do the larger things. You got to always start small, and then you'll grow into, and that's also about living balanced. It's like giving yourself all the things you need in a balanced fashion without feeling like you have to hit anything hard, if that
Yeah,
makes sense. So,
absolutely.
thank
Perfect.
you so much for having me on. This was such a beautiful, beautiful conversation, and I cannot wait to hear it live and listen back. And I know the audience can definitely walk away with a handful of things to try on. So I'm super excited about it.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. And I loved the conversation too. I had thought it was going to take a little bit of a different track and it went this way and I loved it. So thank you, Robin. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too. Oh, wait, Robin, let's tell people how to find you. Where can people look you up and follow you?
Oh, thank you. So all my social media handles are Live Life Balance with Robin. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I also have a Facebook podcast group called Live Life Balanced with Robin podcast. And we just take a deeper dive into the podcast episode of the week. So if you're somebody who wants to have more conversations around that, that would be a good place for you. I also have a website, livelifebalancewithrobin.com. And as far as working with me, I do one-on-one coaching that's already set up and going. I actually am launching an empty nest community for moms who are either new to empty nesting, might have one child already gone, or fully embracing the new season, and just to give each other support. And then each month we talk about just different topics that pop up for empty nesters and people kind of in that age bracket. So that's launching. I have a live event coming in February just for some local moms. And then at the end of February, beginning of March, the virtual will launch. So you guys can check that out on my social media handles as well. And then I'm also creating a course. I'm in beta launch in March, and that is going to be for women who are sort of in that midlife range, who have tried everything to create better wellness for themselves, but just kind of keep getting back up, either into a corner or against the wall, whatever you want to call it, and really are looking for a sustainable way of changing habits and behaviors, self-love, self-care, all those routines, and then kind of delving into what makes somebody a healthy person and just some basics. So it's tools to set you up for a sustainable lifestyle of wellness and health. So that is what I've got going on right now, and who knows what will be in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. That empty nester group sounds like something that I would fit in nicely too.
And I would love your voice in there, because you definitely have a lot to give. And I think that's going to be the coolest part, is just all the women that come with all their different wisdom and just experiences. And I think it validates the way we all feel. There's a lot, it's a lot of emotional roller coaster when your children are going off to start their lives on their own. And especially for moms who have poured into them, which I think are all moms, but we have some emotions. And I do feel like, though, growing up, we have a bunch of different groups that are set up for us, like Mommy and Me, and then your sports groups and your whatever happens in school. And then it's like the empty nest phase comes, and there's not a lot of, things creative around that. So I felt a very deep pull to create that for people.
Awesome. That's beautiful. And it's so important to be in community and have that connection, right?
Oh gosh, yes.
We've become so isolated in some ways. And so I know I've been craving community and connection, and have created a group too. So
yeah,
thank you for doing all you're doing, and go check her out, everybody. That her Facebook group is good too. There's lots of good perspective and learnings in there. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope you all have a great week.
You too. Thanks, Robin.
All right, you're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, Robin is such an amazing wealth of knowledge, and she articulates herself so well. I always appreciate when people can do that, because when I'm interviewing someone on the podcast, and I don't know if it's just because I'm new to it or what, but I feel like those skills go out the window for me. So I always I recognize it and see it in other people. I am so grateful for all that Robin shared and reminded us of today. I love her 1% shift approach to things. It's so true, that small, mindful baby steps are easier to sustain and maintain and make into routines and habits. I mean, it's just the facts. She's doing so much to give back to the world. Look her up and get into her world, especially if you're an empty nest mom. Check her out. Check out her support community and join in. All right, here are the takeaways from our conversation. Number 1, you have the power to transform anything in your life. All you have to do is decide to do things differently. Number 2, being authentic to who you are is when your personal transformation will start to take shape. Number 3, be your own self-advocate and listen to your gut feelings or your intuition. Number 4, there's a gut-brain connection. If you're feeling it in your gut, your brain is also off, or your brain is off, which makes your gut off. Start to tune into yourself and recognize what that actually feels like. The first step in any transformation is awareness. Number 5, 1% shifts make all the difference and are easier to make into daily habits and routines. It's the small daily practices that seem so insignificant and like a waste of time that actually end up carrying you miles. They are more sustainable and are the things that will transform your whole life. Number 6, take a minute to pause when you feel like you're about to do or say something that you won't feel good about. Give yourself a second to get it together and reframe so you're able to come at it with a more authentic lens. Number 7, the health of your mind depends on all the inputs, the things you see,
listen to, the people you surround yourself with, how you speak to yourself, the thoughts you have, and all the things you consume affect your state of being. Number 8, the health of your body depends on what you put in and on your body, how you move your body, how you treat your body, and how things make your body feel. Remember, your body is a gift. Treat it like your best friend. What you do today will affect your health tomorrow and your family. Number 9, the health of your spirit depends on what is meaningful for you, like your relationship with God, source, spirit, universe, whatever you call it. Like not feeling alone, what you're pouring into yourself, the practices you nurture and devote yourself to, doing things that bring you joy, and doing things that feed your heart and soul. Number 10, prayer versus meditation. Prayer is asking, meditation is the practice of listening. Number 11, give yourself grace and space to get to know yourself, to figure out what you want, to figure out what brings you joy. It's taken you however many years old you are right now to get where you are, and the expectation that you are putting on yourself for things to happen or change instantaneously is not serving you well. Look at it as a process rather than just one step and you're done. Number 12, if things you choose aren't soul feeding, they will be soul sucking. And that's it for the takeaways. Have you tried mud water yet? It's where it's at. It's the coffee replacement drink I have every morning, and I love it with a little honey on oat milk. I started drinking it a few years ago when I was kicking all of my addictions, including caffeine. And my 2 favorite things about it are that it's organic and that it's made with mushrooms, so it has tons of health benefits. The best part is you can get 15% off using my link, which is mudwater.com/Paula Schuster. That's that's mudwter.com/PAULASCHUSTER. And I'll put a link in the show notes too. It was totally awesome hanging out with you today, and I look forward to next week on the Scared as Fuck and Doing It Anyway podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I know you have so many things to do, and I really appreciate that you take time out of your life to listen. I hope my podcast helps you. I hope it inspires you. I hope it fills you up. I hope it sheds new light on things, something. And I hope this particular episode helps you open up to small, tiny 1% shifts that will make all the difference and transform your life. There are so many amazing episodes on the way, so please make sure that you follow along on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're listening. And if any episodes resonate with you, then share them with somebody. Take a second and email the link to this episode to someone that you think could really use this conversation, or leave us a review or a rating, because that helps other people find our podcast. It literally helps me keep going. And finally, I would love to hear from you. One of the biggest reasons why I created this podcast is to connect with people, to connect with you. So reach out. I have no way of contacting you other than doing episodes. So reach out to me. Let's talk, let's connect, let's meet. Maybe not even in person. Maybe it's just virtual over a phone, or maybe it's over Zoom or whatever. You can always reach me at paula@reikiflowmn.com. And that's also the place where you can let me know what you're interested in. If there's certain topics you want to hear about, if there's certain questions you want answered, if there's certain people you want interviewed, or if you want to be on the podcast, reach out and let me know. Okay. I love you all so much. Peace out.